Razer's Blade 14 is the most powerful 14-inch gaming laptop I've ever tested. I mean, it can go right up to Nvidia RTX 3080 Ti graphics. But so much power in such a small space means other compromises though, and potential problems that you need to know about. As is always the case with Razer's laptops, the solid metal CNC aluminum chassis feels excellent. Easily the best feeling build quality as far as Windows-based gaming laptops are concerned. We've still got the black anodized finish and green Razer theme with the lid logo that lights up, and you can use the software to change the lid light between static, breathing, or off. Aluminum is a softer metal. In just a couple of weeks of use, I've somehow already got a silver dent on the lid. I've only been using this at home and haven't even attempted to travel with it or anything, so expect these to appear over time. The black finish is a massive fingerprint magnet, but I also found it fairly easy to clean with a microfiber cloth. There's an indent on the front and the middle, which makes it easy to get your finger in to open the lid. As a 14-inch model, it's lighter and may start tipping a little before you extend it the full 136 degrees. The hinge motion feels nice and sturdy, and it makes a satisfying snap sound when the lid closes. There's not much flex to the metal lid or keyboard thanks to the solid metal build. The laptop alone weighs just 4 pounds or 1.8 kilos, increasing to 5.8 pounds or 2.6 kilos with the 230 watt power adapter. It's extremely portable, even for a 14-inch laptop, and is quite thin. I'll compare it in depth against the Zephyrus G14 from Asus soon. Make sure you're subscribed. My Blade 14 is maxed out with Nvidia's RTX 3080 Ti graphics, but the lower 3070 Ti and 3060 options still come with the same Ryzen 9 6900HX CPU, 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and 1TB SSD. Unlike last year's Blade 14, this year's version gets a muck switch, meaning we can disable Optimus to get a speed boost in games, but at the expense of worse battery life. Unfortunately, there's no advanced Optimus, so you have to reboot to swap. There's no G-Sync, but you get FreeSync to remove screen tearing with Optimus enabled and the integrated Radeon graphics active. The screen looks decent with alright color gamut for a gaming laptop. Contrast was pretty average. It's bright enough with 100% brightness coming in at 357 nits. Above 300 nits at maximum is the lowest I want to see. This is fine for indoor use. Like the larger Blade 15 and 17, there's no screen overdrive mode available. This means no overshoot or undershoot, but also not amazing greater gray screen response time. But expect different results with the 144Hz 1080p screen option. This year's Blade 14 is still using the same panel as last year's model, so it's not surprising to find out that the response time is unchanged. This year's Zephyrus G14 was faster despite having a lower 120Hz refresh rate. The total system latency is the amount of time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire appears on the screen in CSGO. This year's Blade 14 has a larger improvement compared to the screen response time thanks to the addition of the muck switch. But again, the G14 was faster. There was basically no backlight bleed in my screen in this worst case test scenario, but this will vary between laptops and panels. There's a 1080p camera above the screen in the middle, and it has IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. This is how the camera and microphones look and sound. This is what it sounds like while typing on the keyboard, and the screen isn't wobbling at all while doing this. It's got a per-key RGB backlit keyboard, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. You can adjust the brightness through software, or with the F10 and F11 shortcut keys to 15 different brightness levels. More control sounds better, but I found it a bit annoying to press the keys so many times for subtle changes. Lighting and effects can be customized through the Razer Chroma software. Typing felt fine. The keys have a clicky feel despite the key presses not feeling like they go down too far. Despite the power button being right next to delete and backspace, and the fact that Windows 11's default is to put the system to sleep on a power button press, I found that you need to hold it for about half a second before it goes to sleep, so an accidental mispress when typing won't do anything. The glass touchpad is smooth, quite big considering the size of the laptop, it clicks down anywhere, and feels nice and accurate. There are front-facing speakers on either side of the keyboard. I thought they sounded pretty average. There's not much bass noise, and they're a little tinny with a little palm rest vibration at higher volume levels. The latency mon results weren't looking amazing, but I've seen far worse. The left side from the back has the power input, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, and a 3.5mm audio combo jack. The right side has a second USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C and Type A port, HDMI 2.1 output, and there's a Kensington lock at the back. The power plug can go in two ways. One way blocks the left Type A port, so don't do that if you need it. Both of those Type C ports can be used to charge the laptop, and they both also offer DisplayPort support. If you've got Optimus on, both of the Type C ports connect to the integrated Radeon graphics. But if you disable Optimus and reboot, then both of the Type C ports connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics, so that would be preferable for VR. HDMI, on the other hand, connects directly to the NVIDIA graphics regardless of whether Optimus is on or off. And we confirmed it could run an external 4K screen at 120Hz 8-bit with G-Sync. There are 10 TR5 screws of the same length to remove to get inside. After removing them, the bottom panel came right off with just my hands. But the screw type is less common. The tools I use for opening laptops had me covered though. I'll leave a link to them below the video. Inside we've got the battery down the front, single M.2 storage slot just above on the left, and Wi-Fi 6E card on the right. Memory is soldered to the motherboard and cannot be upgraded. This results in a relatively low upgradability score compared to most other laptops out there. You can change the same number of components as last year's Blade 14. The Zephyrus G14 scores higher here for having one memory slot and not using TR5 screws. The Wi-Fi performance wasn't as bad compared to most of the Realtek and MediaTek options that I usually find paired with AMD gaming laptops. I think this is the first time I've ever had Qualcomm Wi-Fi, and on at least 2 occasions Wi-Fi just wasn't working. Device Manager showed an error for the card, but it worked fine after I rebooted it. Hopefully that improves with driver updates. The 1TB PCIe Gen 4 NVMe M.2 SSD that came in my Blade 14 was performing very nicely. While you can upgrade it, keep in mind there's just one slot, so you'd either have to reinstall Windows on a new drive or find some way of cloning it. The Blade 14 is powered by a 61.6 Wh battery. The Razer Synapse software lets you press the Function plus R shortcut at any time to lower the screen's refresh rate down to 60Hz, which helps increase battery life. This is why the screen flashes black when you press it. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen automatically when you unplug the charger, like with ASUS and MSI laptops. The total runtime was around 48% longer just by using that option to run at 60Hz, and both were far longer compared to running with Optimus off, as the NVIDIA graphics use more power compared to the integrated Radeon graphics in the CPU. It was lasting longer compared to last year's Blade 14. However, both this year's Zephyrus G14 and last year's were lasting even longer, though those do also have larger batteries. AMD Ryzen laptops tend to last longer in my YouTube video playback test compared to Intel alternatives. It comes in directly above the intake fans through these vents. They have some sort of mesh over them, but out the back underneath. You can't actually see the exhaust fans below unless you look under it. Razer's Synapse software lets us change between different performance modes. We can set balance mode and optionally customize the fan speed, silent mode with no additional changes, or custom mode with the option of setting 4 different CPU modes and 3 different GPU modes. You can set these to whatever combination you like. And as we can't test everything, we've chosen to test with both modes set to low, medium, high, and then CPU on boost and GPU on high for full power. You can also hold the function key and press P to cycle between silent, balance, and custom modes at any time. It would have been nice if the R and P keys lit up when holding function so you know their shortcuts, but at least the software tells you. The temperatures were fine when just sitting there idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full load scenario. Most applications don't fully load both the CPU and GPU at the same time like this. Setting the fans to full speed in balance mode was able to lower the GPU as that's as high as it goes. The cooling pad I test with, linked below the video, was able to lower the temperatures a little. These are the clock speeds for the same tests just shown. Balanced mode was basically hitting the same CPU clock speeds as custom mode set to high and above, though the GPU wasn't wasn't clocking as high. This is because of lower power limits. Balanced mode with the fans on auto ran the GPU at 80 watts, and then with the fans maxed out, this actually lowered down to 75 watts as it's instead favoring CPU power. With the CPU and GPU both set to high, the GPU was running at around 95 watts while the CPU was on 40. Then setting the CPU to the highest boost mode seems to increase it by 6 watts. But the power budget is removed from the GPU, it's a trade-off. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. High plus high and high plus boost ended up scoring the same at 1440p, the native resolution of my screen. The CPU power limits are able to go a bit higher when the GPU isn't being used. Compared to Intel laptops, AMD seems to do quite well with less power. So although 54 watts wouldn't be great for an i7 or i9, it's a decent amount for the 6900HX, especially considering the smaller 14-inch machine it's in. It's only slightly better compared to last year's Blade 14 with the older 5900HX. There's less than a 5% boost to the single-core performance, while the multi-core gap is honestly small enough to be within the margin of error. Ryzen just can't compete with Intel 12th Gen this year when it comes to single and multi-threaded performance. Ryzen can compete when we unplug the charger and run purely off of battery power, as a number of other 8-core laptops are at the top of the graph. The Blade 14 was not one of these though, as it seems to lose a lot of performance when running on battery. My first thought was maybe this is why the battery life was decent, but the G14 from ASUS was lasting longer while also still performing better with a HS chip. On battery, you're forced into silent mode, and I did this testing with CPU boost enabled, which allows for better processor performance when running off of the battery. With this setting off, we get even lower results. Most laptops I test sit around the low 30°C point when doing nothing at idle, and the Blade 14 was much the same. It was much warmer with the stress tests running, especially in the middle, which was a little hot. But as you'll hear soon, it was also still quiet. Balanced mode with the fan on auto was quite similar. The palm rest was always warm due to it being metal. It was cooler with the fans maxed out, but still warm feeling due. The highest performance mode was quite similar. There wasn't a whole lot of difference, but the fan The fans were still audible when idling in silent mode, and they got progressively louder with the stress test running in the higher modes, as you'd expect. I didn't think it was that loud compared to other laptops. The G14 from ASUS, for example, is louder. Now let's find out how well the Blade 14 actually performs in games and see how it compares against other laptops. Cyberpunk 2077 was tested the same on all laptops, and I've got this year's Blade 14 shown by the red highlight. I found it extremely interesting that the Blade 14 was performing about the same as the larger Blade 15. It makes sense when you consider that both laptops are able to run the RTX 3080 Ti at 90 watts in games. And processors doesn't really matter in this game at the native 1440p resolution. The CPUs probably make a bigger difference at 1080p though, and I'll fairly compare Intel with AMD soon, so make sure you're subscribed. The Blade 14 was slightly ahead in control at 1440p as well, but this is only a 5% boost compared to last year's cheaper Blade 14 with non-TI 3080 graphics. Not really much of a difference in a year. Compared to this year's Zephyrus G14 from ASUS, the Blade was reaching a 38% higher average FPS. This game seems to prefer Nvidia's GeForce graphics compared to AMD's Radeon, hence the big gap. Red Dead much closer to the Blade 14 this time. They're basically within the margin of error range with a 1 to 2 FPS or so difference. Nothing important, but still goes to show how Nvidia and AMD options can differ based on the game. The larger Blade 15 was a little ahead here, but clearly size isn't everything considering where the even larger 17-inch MSI GS77 is sitting. We've also tested this Blade 14 in 14 games at all setting levels with features like DLSS, FSR, and ray tracing. And I'll leave a link to that video for you to check out after this one in the description below. Here are the 3D Mark results for those that find them useful. Now for some content creator tests. Adobe Premiere was tested with the Puget Systems benchmark tool. Like the games, this year's Blade 14 wasn't much higher compared to last year's, though both were ahead compared to the other 14-inch competition from Asus. This year's Zephyrus G14 was scoring quite a bit better in Adobe Photoshop, but at least this year's Blade 14 had more of a boost compared to last year's. Unfortunately, I don't have DaVinci Resolve data with version 17 on last year's Blade 14, but like the games, we can see it's close to the larger Blade 15, and also ahead of this year's G14 too. We've also tested SpecView Perf, which tests out various professional 3D workloads. The BIOS is extremely basic and outdated looking compared to other modern laptops. There isn't a whole lot of customization that can be done through here, but it gets the job done. Linux support was tested with an Ubuntu 22.04 live CD. By default, the keyboard, touchpad, speakers, and camera worked. Wi-Fi wasn't recognized, it probably needs drivers. Keyboard shortcuts for key brightness, volume adjustment, and screen brightness all work. HDMI didn't output an image by default, again, might need drivers. Let's discuss pricing and availability next. This will change over time, so refer to the link below the video for current prices and deals. Apple's $900 more expensive compared to the 3070 Ti version, or $1,500 more than the 3060 model. Honestly, for most people, I think the 3060 would still do pretty well running most games even at 1440p, especially once you make use of features like DLSS and FSR. There's no way I could see myself spending more to get the 3080 Ti compared to the 3070 Ti. Every time I've compared both of those at lower GPU power limits, the 3080 Ti hardly offers that much extra performance, but it costs way more. Seriously, don't even consider the 3080 Ti unless you're just rich and want the absolute best possible performance from a 14-inch laptop. Are you getting the best possible performance from the CPU and GPU in this machine? No. But the Blade 14 still does offer impressive performance for its smaller size, especially compared to other 14-inch options if portability is priority number one. The biggest issue I've got is that it only has 16 gigs of memory. You can't even get more with the most expensive $3,500 option. Now, to be fair, 16 gigs of memory is still a decent sweet spot today when it comes to gaming, but for a machine this expensive that I'd be keeping around for the next few years, I just think they should have offered a 32 gig option as well. At least the Zephyrus G14 from Asus does have some memory upgradability, and you can check out my full review of it over here next. Or this video instead if you want to get a better idea of how well this Blade 14 performs in more games. I will also be comparing this Blade 14 against the G14 soon, so make sure you're subscribed for that comparison.